back, brother. This content is for those genuinely interested in men's rights. It covers complex, controversial topics that may not suit a general audience. If you're not part of the men's rights community, this video isn't for you, so feel free to tune out now. I'm Conrad Riker, a writer and advocate for fairness, dignity, and respect for men. This movement isn't about division, but addressing systemic injustices in divorce, family law, and societal expectations. Inspired by hard-working men unfairly stripped of their rights, I write for balance and justice. Together we can change the narrative. Please like and subscribe if you appreciate this video, as it will help get the word out to those who need it. Thank you. Please relax and enjoy. This is an excerpt from Defending Against Woke Cultural Warfare. Defending Against Woke Cultural Warfare is an ebook available in all bookstores. My name is Conrad Riker, and I've written this book to help all the good men out there who are tired of being silenced by the woke mob. We've all experienced it, the relentless accusations of racism, sexism, and bigotry that come flying our way just for daring to voice our genuine concerns or expressing our support for traditional values. My journey into this subject started a few years ago when I began to question the mainstream narrative about race, gender, and identity. As a man who has always believed in fairness, equality, and individual rights, I found it increasingly difficult to understand how so many people could be blindly following such divisive and illogical ideologies. The more I researched, the more I discovered about the sinister origins of these ideas, and the more I realized how they were being used to destroy the very foundations of our society. Like you, I could no longer stand idly by while these cultural Marxists and social justice warriors tore apart the fabric of our culture and dragged us all down into a dark, suffocating pit of self-loathing and collective guilt. Defending Against Woke Cultural Warfare is not just a book, it's a call to arms for all rational, independent thinkers who refuse to be silenced by the woke mob. In it, I'll share with you the knowledge and tools you need to navigate this minefield of political correctness and stand up for your beliefs without fear or hesitation. This book is for you if, 1, you're sick of being called a bigot or racist just for defending traditional values or expressing genuine concerns about the direction our society is heading. 2, you're tired of watching as the woke mob destroys everything we once held dear, from our history and heritage to our very understanding of masculinity and femininity. 3, you're ready to take a stand against the forces of political correctness and fight back against the woke onslaught that seeks to silence and oppress us all. If you're a part of this target audience, then I strongly encourage you to be defending against woke cultural warfare. As you'll soon discover, this book has the power to change your life, awaken your mind, and give you the knowledge and confidence you need to stand up for what's right. But if you're not a part of this target audience, I kindly request that you put this book down and find something more enjoyable to do with your time. This book is not for you if you, 1, believe that whiteness is inherently evil, or that men are always oppressors and women are always victims. 2, think that systemic racism is a genuine problem that requires drastic action to address. 3, believe that it's acceptable to use accusations of racism, sexism, and bigotry as a weapon to silence and oppress those who dare to question the woke narrative. If any of the above statements describe your beliefs, then I encourage you to seek out other sources of information that align with your worldview. This book is not for you, and you will not find value or enjoyment in its contents. For the rest of you, I eagerly await the opportunity to share my insights and knowledge with you, and to help you take back your life, your voice, and your right to think independently and critically. With Defending Against Woke Cultural Warfare by your side, you'll soon discover that there is a way to fight back against the woke mob and reclaim your place in this great, diverse, and ever-changing society we call home. With the introduction completed, we are jumping to an extract from the book. In the realm of societal discourse, there exists a peculiar phenomenon, the double bind. This term refers to a situation in which an individual receives conflicting messages or experiences unresolvable dilemmas. Often the woke mob employs the double bind as a tactic to discredit and demonize their opponents, specifically those who dare to question the veracity of their claims. For instance, critics of anti-racism ideology face a daunting dilemma: either endorse the woke narrative of white fragility and systemic racism, or be vilified as racists themselves. The psychological toll that the double bind can inflict upon individuals is astounding, and it can be manipulated and wielded to control people. To elucidate the concept of the double bind, it is essential to recognize that it can manifest in various forms. The classic double bind, as described by the late psychiatrist and researcher Dr. Gregory Bateson, involves the simultaneous presentation of conflicting or contradictory messages, leaving the individual with no means to resolve the situation. For instance, a child might be scolded by a parent for showing fear, despite the fact that the original fear-inducing stimulus has not been removed. In such a case, the child is in a no-win situation. They cannot express fear without facing reprimand, but they also cannot suppress their fear because it is still present. This dynamic can lead to confusion, anxiety, and even mental health disorders. Similarly, the woke mob employs the double bind to manipulate and control their opponents. For example, consider the concept of white fragility, a term coined by author Robin DiAngelo. According to DiAngelo, white fragility refers to the defensiveness and denial exhibited by white individuals when confronted with discussions of race and privilege. The woke mob contends that any white person who questions their claims about systemic racism and white privilege is guilty of white fragility, a clear example of the double bind. Remember, the woke mob insists that white fragility is a universal phenomenon amongst white individuals. However, if a white person challenges these claims, they are inevitably labeled as racists, which in this context essentially means people who deny the existence of white fragility. In other words, the woke mob forces individuals into a no-win situation by asserting that white fragility is both universal among white people and that only racists deny its existence. This manipulative and controlling tactic effectively shuts down any meaningful dialogue about race and privilege. The double bind in this context can have profound psychological consequences for those caught in its grasp. The constant pressure to conform to the woke narrative, coupled with the ever-present threat of being labeled a racist, can lead to anxiety, depression, and other adverse mental health outcomes. In essence, the double bind acts as a powerful means of control, forcing individuals to submit to the woke ideology or risk becoming social pariahs. To demonstrate the effectiveness of the double bind as a tool of manipulation and control, consider the following hypothetical conversation between two individuals, John and Jane. John, I think the concept of white fragility is problematic because it assumes that all white people are inherently fragile and deficient in their understanding of race. Jane, your comment is precisely the problem. Your refusal to acknowledge your own white fragility is evidence of your denial and ignorance, not to mention your inherent racism. In this exchange, John is already in a no-win situation. If he admits to having white fragility, he must accept the woke ideology, and, in doing so, refute his initial claim that the concept is problematic. On the other hand, if he maintains his belief that white fragility is flawed, he is automatically labeled a racist by Jane. The double bind, in this case, effectively stifles any productive discussion about the topic. To further illustrate the control that the double bind can exert over individuals, it is useful to examine some real-world examples. In June 2020, former New York Times editor Barry Weiss resigned from her position, citing the newspaper's increasingly hostile work environment towards dissenting voices. In her public resignation letter, Weiss recounted a chilling story of a woke mob attempting to force her into submission. My work and my spirit have been relentlessly attacked by colleagues who believe that truth belongs to the subjects of a story, not the reporter of it. Twitter is not on the masthead of the New York Times, but Twitter has become its ultimate editor. As the ethics and mores of that platform have become those of the paper itself has increasingly become a kind of performance space. In this case, the double bind takes on a more complex form. Weiss is not directly confronted with a conflicting message, but rather with an oppressive culture that enforces ideological conformity. The result is the same, however. Weiss is forced to choose between adopting the woke narrative or facing a barrage of criticism and vilification from her colleagues. The double bind, in this context, serves as a means of controlling and suppressing dissent within the institution. Similarly, in academia, the double bind is often employed to manipulate and control the discourse. Take, for example, the case of British professor Kathleen Stock, who was forced to leave her position at the University of Sussex after facing relentless harassment and death threats for her views on gender and transgenderism. Stock, a self-described feminist, lesbian, and trans ally, was targeted by a woke mob that sought to discredit her as a transphobic and far-right academic. In an attempt to defend herself and her academic freedom, Stock penned a powerful essay in which she decried the tactics used by the woke mob to suppress dissenting voices. The far-right accusation is thrown around casually these days, part of a strategy designed to shut down debate. It's a smear technique, among others, dehumanizing one's opponent, so they can be dismissed without hearing their arguments. In this case, the double bind is employed to force individuals into accepting the woke narrative or facing relentless harassment and smear tactics. By labeling dissenting voices as far-right and transphobic, the woke mob effectively shuts down any meaningful dialogue on these topics. Another example of the double bind can be observed in the world of corporate America, where companies are increasingly being pressured to adopt woke ideology as a means of appeasing their increasingly diverse customer base. In many cases, companies are forced to choose between embracing the woke narrative or risking the wrath of their customers and employees. Consider the case of Chick-fil-A, a fast food chain known for its Christian-inspired values and philanthropy. In recent years, the company has faced significant backlash from the woke mob for its alleged support of far-right and anti-LGBTQ forces. Despite the fact that Chick-fil-A has consistently maintained that its charitable giving is intended to be non-discriminatory, the woke mob has continued to demonize the company as bigoted and hateful. In response to this pressure, Chick-fil-A has made several attempts to appease the woke mob, including ceasing donations to certain Christian organizations and pronouncing its commitment to equality, diversity, and inclusion. However, these efforts have largely been unsuccessful, as the woke mob has continued to vilify the company for its perceived failures to fully embrace woke ideology. The double bind, in this case, forces companies to choose between embracing the woke narrative or facing relentless criticism and potential loss of business. By labeling dissenting voices as far-right and hateful, the woke mob effectively shuts down any meaningful dialogue on these topics and exerts a powerful influence over corporate decision-making. The double bind is a potent tool for manipulation and control used by the woke mob to discredit and demonize their opponent. They present contradictory statements which effectively shut down dialogue about race, privilege, and other essential social issues. The psychological impact of the double bind on individuals is immense, and it can be used to control and suppress dissent within institutions and society. To counteract the damaging effects of the double bind, it is essential for individuals to recognize its presence and resist its pull. This can be achieved by engaging in open and honest dialogue with others, as well as seeking out diverse perspectives and viewpoints. By fostering a culture of intellectual curiosity and open-mindedness, we can work to dismantle the power of the double bind and promote a more inclusive and respectful society. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your interest in defending against woke cultural warfare, available in all good bookstores. Please like and subscribe. Thank you, and God bless.